Good afternoon to everyone. This session is all about orientation towards English language. So, what is this orientation? It is all about English language. How is it important from the exam point of view? Why should you enroll in this course? And what are the benefits if you enroll in this course? And how do you get the competitive edge? And generally, I use the word insight. Insight is a very good word. It means deep understanding. And what is this deep understanding? You have to know what is there when it comes to English language. You should also know what is important from the exam point of view. Now, before we start the session, I would like to start this session with a nice quote because a lot of students at the national level, whether it is in Delhi or Bombay or Bangalore or Chennai or Hyderabad, when it comes to English, they think English is a tough language, English is a tough component. But I would like to tell all these candidates this quote, if you remember this quote, it helps you throughout. So, what is this quote? All things are difficult before they are easy. Initially, anything is difficult. And when you practice a lot, when you put in a lot of effort, the same difficult thing becomes easy for you. And once you keep this in mind and you try to master English language, at no stage you get disappointed or demotivated. And this will constantly help you and it motivates you to learn and go in the right direction. Now we'll start this session with a question. What is a question? Why English course? Now, why should you enroll in a course? There's $1 million question. We'll look at what exactly this English section in competitive exams, what is it, and how do candidates look at it? English section in competitive exams is the most dreaded one. Most dreaded. Dreaded means what? The most feared. A lot of candidates, they are worried, they are tensed up, they are not quite sure how to handle English component. English section in competitive exams is the most dreaded one. Now we should always look at the reasons. Why do candidates fear English component? Two reasons stand out when we ask the question, why do candidates fear English when it comes to competitive exams? The first reason is purely academic reason. And what is it? Candidates are not trained at school level and college level from the competitive exams point of view. Though they learn a lot of English and they know a lot of English, that English is not related to competitive exams and it doesn't help them when it comes to competitive exams. So the academic training, the academic background is the major factor and the first factor. Now we'll see the second reason. The second reason is a personal reason. What is it? Candidates neither read English newspapers regularly nor use English in day-to-day conversations. A lot of candidates don't have the habit of reading the newspaper every day. And they don't read the magazines, they don't read important articles, and they don't make it a habit to read every day. They don't have reading as a habit. And they don't use English in everyday conversation or when they interact with others. Quite often they use a regional language. Because of this, I call these rather habits. Because of these personal habits, I call these personal reasons. And the first one, academic reasons, a lot of candidates are not good at English from the exam point of view or from competitive exams point of view. Now, this is a problem because if you take any competitive exam, you have three major components. One is quant, the second is reasoning, and the third is English. And quite often you come across candidates who say, I'm good at quant, I'm good at reasoning, but English, I'm not good at English. As I said, the reasons are quite obvious. One is the academic reason, lack of proper training from the exam point of view. Second, personal habits or personal reasons. But we should always remember, every problem has a solution. Now, what is the solution here? All that you have to do, enroll in a course that not only removes the fear factor, but also gives the competitive edge. There are two things you have to remember. One is you have to remove the fear factor because if you have the fear factor, your learning gets blocked or you will not learn properly. You will not go in the right direction. So this course will remove that fear factor throughout. And the second and the most important, learning is important beyond any doubt. But not only learning, once you learn, you should learn in such a way that you have the competitive edge. This course it does two things. One is it removes a fear factor, and you will not look at English from a particular angle, that is, you don't feel that English is a tough language. Second, and the most important, this course gives you the competitive edge. Now we will move on to the question. Any competitive exam has English part, and what do they test? So we always ask the question, what is tested? Four areas are tested. One is grammar. Second is a reading skill. I prefer to call it a reading comprehension skill. Third is vocabulary. And the fourth is a writing skill. But writing skill at this stage, it is not very important. The first three are very important for prelims and for mains. That is grammar, the foundation, a reading comprehension skill, and vocabulary, they go hand in hand. They are inseparable. So four areas: grammar, reading, writing, and vocabulary. Now we'll see. We'll start with grammar. What is the reason? Grammar is a foundation. Any language depends on the grammar part of that particular language. Now, English grammar, you all know it is not that easy to master English grammar. At the same time, if you are taught in a systematic way, within no time you can master English grammar. Now we'll start with the question, what is the syllabus when it comes to English grammar? The syllabus of English grammar can be divided into three groups. Some topics depend on words, some topics depend on sentences, and a couple of topics depend on what I call effective English. Now let us see what are the topics that depend on words, or what are word-based topics. So word-based topics are parts of speech, the most important, and a lot of candidates, they may say, so we know parts of speech, we have already learned, but school level your learning is of no use when it comes to competitive exams. In this course, we are going to teach from the exam point of view, competitive exams point of view, that I call the higher level. And once you reach that level, you can easily get 5 marks irrespective of the standards of the paper. Now the second topic based on words, articles. If you take English language, there are about 8 lakh words. All these 8 lakh words are nothing but 8 parts of speech except a and the. These three are what we call articles. And the third topic based on words, helping verbs. Helping verbs are also known as modals. These are very important from the exam point of view, not only from the exam point of view, but also from the interview and group discussion point of view. These are extremely important. Now we'll see what are the topics that go with sentences, or what is the syllabus when it comes to English grammar. The second section, sentence-based topics. The first one is tenses. Tenses are very important. Usually I tell students, if you master tenses, you can master English grammar, you can master English language. And I tell the students, tenses are the key to English grammar. So once you learn tenses well, you can easily master passive voice, you can master reported speech, you can master conditionals, you can master question tags, and all these topics depend on the knowledge of tenses. Once you learn tenses well, you start enjoying, and it becomes so easy for you to learn other topics which depend on tenses. Then sentences, types of sentences. This knowledge is also very important, though they may not ask questions directly related to types of sentences. Concord. Concord is nothing but subject-verb agreement. Actually, concord means harmonious relationship between different grammatical units, and the most important one is subject-verb agreement. And every bank exam, you can expect at least one question related to subject-verb agreement. Then synthesis. Of late, the papers have become very difficult, and these days they're asking questions related to synthesis. Synthesis means what? They give 2 sentences and they give the link words or link phrases, and using those phrases, you have to combine these 2 sentences and create a new sentence. This is rather difficult. Now, degrees of comparison, I don't say they are important to some extent, because if you take other competitive exams, not bank exams, they do touch degrees of comparison. But bank exams only to some extent, not to a great extent. But whatever it is, when you learn, you have to learn well, and you should not leave any stone unturned. So we touch that topic as well. And the last two topics are very important. What are these topics? Phrases and clauses. Before 2016, these topics were not at all important. You may ask why, or you may wonder why. Before 2016, the papers were very easy and many questions, very short sentences. And after 16, English has become very tough. The standards have gone up. And today, if you look at many questions, each question looks like a paragraph. I've seen a lot of students, whenever they come across a lengthy sentence, they cannot spot the errors. One of the reasons, any lengthy sentence has a few phrases, a few clauses. And once you, if you don't know what phrases are, what clauses are, and you don't have the ability to separate the phrases and clauses, I don't think you can handle a lengthy sentence where you have to spot the error. It becomes a problem. I've seen a lot of students, what they try to do, because they don't know what a phrase is and what a clause is, and because they lack the ability to separate the phrases and clauses, they take the subject from a particular clause, they take a verb from a different clause, and they try to see whether there's an error or not. That will never work out. So this is like the foundation. Today the papers are so tough. If you know what a phrase is, what a clause is, what are the different types of phrases, what are the different types of clauses, it will be easy for you to master, spot the errors, or answer many questions effortlessly. Now we will see, how do we teach? Now the syllabus you have seen, the third one I will show you later, that deals with phrasal verbs and idioms. It also goes with vocabulary. Now coming to the question, you have seen the syllabus, you know that grammar is very important. You may wonder, how do they teach? How does it teach? Now this is a sort of insight, how I teach parts of speech. My style of teaching, whatever I teach in a systematic way. I start with introduction. I tell whether it is important, not important. If I say it is important, I tell what is important, what is not important. And I always try to teach in a systematic way. I try to give the competitive edge. Now, if you look at this, how I teach parts of speech, you get an idea. Generally, what happens at the national level or at the school level, we'll start with the school level. School level, they teach the definition and they teach the types, the different aspects related to the part of speech. And mind map, my style of teaching is using mind maps. With the help of the mind maps, if you learn, there are many benefits. You can learn well, you can remember, you can recollect, you can store the information properly. If you can organize the information, you can streamline the information. When you organize the information, it will be very easy for you to retrieve the information, and this helps you in the exam. So this is my approach, rather unique. And rules are the most important when it comes to parts of speech. Any institute, any faculty member definitely teaches the definition, the various dimensions, and the rules. But these, if you master these three, you will not have the competitive edge. Now, I call these three level one. I focus more on level two, besides teaching level one. What is level two? Word forms, word combinations, and usage. Now, school level, usually they don't teach word forms. In bank exams, competitive exams, quite often they ask questions related to word forms. I'll give one example. If I say something like, her silent is appreciated. Now, her silent is appreciated. This sentence is not correct. What is the reason? The word silent, the word is the right word, but the form is not the right form. The correct expression is, her silence is not appreciated. Now you may ask, they look alike, subtle difference. Why the first one is not right? Why the second one is right? In this sentence, we have to use the word, not the adjective form, the noun form. Now when I say her silent is appreciated, the word silent is the adjective form. It is not correct. We have to use a noun form. What is the noun form of this word? Silence. Then what is the correct expression? Her silence is appreciated. Now, quite often they ask questions related to word forms. I usually focus on word forms. I train the students from word forms point of view because they fetch at least 2 or 3 marks in the exam. Word combinations. Every language has a tag. English is known as the most polite language. Besides this, English is also known as a combinational language. And to use a technical term, English has a lot of combinations or English has a lot of collocations. So English has about 8 lakh words and millions of combinations are there. We cannot create our own combinations. We have to learn the combinations and use the right combinations. Then comes a $1 million question. Where do we find these combinations? How can we remember millions of combinations? And these are very important from the exam point of view. All that you have to do, you have to read the Hindu paper, the Hindu editorials regularly. When you read the Hindu editorials regularly, you get exposed to a lot of combinations. And all these combinations, they get registered at the subconscious level. In the exam, when you see a particular question, the right combination pops up and tells you this is right, this is not right. So you should never try to mug up the combinations. All that you have to do, read regularly, get them registered at the subconscious level. And quite often the same combinations are repeated. And if you read the newspaper editorials for quite some time, let's say about 5 months or 6 months, many of these combinations get registered. And usually in the exam, they touch the same combinations. And what is the third one? Usage. English has words. Some words go with formal English. Some words go with informal English. Some words are technical. Some words go with a written English. And a lot of people who are not good at English, they don't know how to use these words. So we call this usage. And this is again very important from the exam point of view. Quite often when it comes to closed test, they give 5 words, you have to select the right word, and deliberately what they try to do, they give two synonyms, 2 words which are synonyms. One goes with effective English, the other goes with everyday English. Because it is a written English, because it is a formal context, we should never select the word that goes with everyday English. We should select the word that goes with effective English. So if you can differentiate which word goes with effective English, which word goes with everyday English, I'm sure that will help you in the exam. Now we will see the second component. This is the most important component today. In the past, this was not that important, but today this is the most important. It decides your selection process. In the past, the papers were more grammar based, but today the papers are more comprehension based and vocabulary based. Now, reading skill, it's a general term. I prefer to call it a reading comprehension skill. What is the meaning of the word comprehension? Comprehension means understanding. This comes from the word comprehend, understand. So, reading comprehension skill means when you read a given text, a piece of text, whether you can understand or not. Again, when it comes to understanding, when it comes to reading, there are 2 levels. Level 1, simply understanding, the ability to understand. Level 2, analytical reading. That means you read, you understand. At the same time, you question the writer, you question the information, and you try to pose questions like, is this authentic? Is this subjective? Is this objective? Is it latest information? Does the writer try to persuade? Does the writer try to criticize? All these questions you ask and you read, keeping all these questions in mind. Today they're looking at analytical reading skill, not simply understanding. Now, based on this, what do you see in the exam? What are the various components? And whether they're important or not, we'll see. The first and foremost, based on reading comprehension skill, it is passage. Now, every bank exam, passage is a must. You cannot expect a bank exam without the passage. And passage, usually they give 10 questions. 5 questions are based on comprehension, and 5 questions are based on vocabulary. Again, meanings of words based on the context, not simply a particular meaning of the word. Because English, each word has at least 3 or 4 meanings. Based on the context, the meaning changes. And they want to check your ability, whether you can make out the meaning of a particular word based on the context or not. Because this is very important when you read a particular piece of text. Without the help of the dictionary, you should be able to make out the meaning of that particular word based on the context. That matters a lot. Now, I would like to tell something very interesting. At the national level, according to one study, in the actual exam, many candidates don't touch the passage, about 80%. Now, once you know this, what you have to do, you have to focus more on the passage. Because if you master reading passage and answering questions related to passage, you have the competitive edge. And I train my students, especially from comprehension point of view and vocabulary point of view. This is rather higher level. And never ever leave the passage in the actual exam. That will be a blunder. Because of this, a lot of candidates, they try to attempt all the objective type questions. Out of 30, they try to attempt 20, and usually they get the single digit. But once you master how to read the passage, how to answer the questions, I'm sure you will get minimum 7, irrespective of the length of the passage, the difficulty of the passage. I can assure you about that. And I'm going to teach the tips how to get 7 minimum out of 10 from the passage. Then based on reading comprehension skill, we have closed test. Usually this is for 5 marks or sometimes 10 marks. For many candidates, this is also a problem. Please remember, comprehension skill, you can master comprehension skill and vocabulary purely based on one particular habit, that is a reading habit. If you read for about 6 months or 8 months every day, the newspapers, magazines regularly, then there's so many benefits. You can become good at comprehension skill. You can read very fast. You can master English vocabulary. You can learn a lot of combinations. You can learn the word forms. The benefits are so many, and you will get the competitive edge. So, closed test is all about word combinations. You all must be knowing what is a closed test. They take a passage, they remove about 10 words, they give the passage with 10 blanks. For each blank, they give 5 words, and you have to select the right word. Here, 3 things are important. One is grammar knowledge, second is word combinations knowledge, and the third is word forms knowledge. All the 3 are very important. And the third knowledge, rather, I would like to say, the lexical terms. Lexical terms are very important. Now we'll see parajumble. Parajumble in the past very easy, but these days rather difficult. And parajumble also depends on your comprehension skill. And if you read a lot, you will be able to understand what is a broad framework or what is a line of thought. Based on that, you will be able to get the correct order. Otherwise, what happens? You get the first sentence, you know the related pairs, and you know which, to some extent, one pair where to place, but you may get stuck with 2 pairs. Then you may lose the correct order. And para completion. This is also important. Nowadays, they're asking a lot of questions related to para completion. And I would rather say these questions are based on CAT model, Common Admission Test, and they give a para completion, a paragraph. The last sentence is removed. They give 5 options. You have to decide the last sentence based on contextual awareness and the line of thought. That is very important. Again, these 2 you can master only if you read a lot. There are no shortcuts, there are no tips. All that you have to do, read regularly, develop awareness about how the writers present information. Then you will be able to get the last sentence and you will be able to complete the paragraph. Sentence completion is also very important. This is also, to some extent, CAT model. They give lengthy sentences and they give 5 options. You have to select one option to complete the sentence. Then this again depends on grammar knowledge, contextual awareness, and to a great extent, your reading habit. In the past, based on reading comprehension skill, they would give one more, scrambled sentences. But nowadays, they're not giving scrambled sentences. What is a scrambled sentence? They take a sentence, they shuffle the words, and you're supposed to get the correct order so that you create a meaningful and grammatically correct sentence. Now, insight into how I teach passage, how I tell students how to master passage, and how to get maximum marks from the passage. I tell the students every passage, we start with the question, what is tested? When they give a passage, what do they try to find out? What do they want the candidates to have? Or what is tested? There are 5 areas they test. The first one is they test whether you can grasp explicit information, whether you have the ability to grasp explicit information. Now, what is the meaning of the word explicit? Explicit means direct. It is printed in the passage. You read the question, you take the keywords, the same keywords are in the passage, the answer is usually there. This is rather easy. In the past, almost all the questions based on explicit information, but nowadays you can expect one, maximum two. A lot of questions are based on implicit information. Now, what is the meaning of the word implicit? Implicit means implied or indirect. It is not printed in the passage, but it is conveyed in a subtle manner. Reading between the lines, you should have the ability to grasp the meaning, and we call this implied or indirect information and implicit information. This is rather difficult, and nowadays a lot of questions based on implicit information. What is the third one? They ask questions related to the writer's views. The writer's views, again, if you read casually, you will not be able to grasp. You have to read analytically. And today, if you take the last 3 years, a lot of questions based on, according to the writer, what do you think the writer? So they ask questions like this. All these questions are based on the writer's views. Whether the writer talks about authentic information, whether he tries to convince someone, whether the statements are subjective, the statements are objective, the information is latest or outdated. All these things, it takes a positive stand or a negative stand, and what is the tone of the passage. All these things do matter, and I call the second one and the third one at higher level. They go with analytical reading skill. What is the next one? Main theme of the passage. This is rather easy. If you read the passage and they ask the question like, according to the passage, what could be the appropriate title? So based on the main theme of the passage or the central idea of the passage, you can easily guess the title of the passage. This is rather easy. And what is the next one? Meanings of words and based on the context. How many questions do they give? They give 5 questions. You may wonder why 5 questions. They want you to have the ability to grasp the meanings of the words based on the context. Because if tomorrow you become a manager, a client brings a document, you go through the document. While going through the document, you come across a few new words. You cannot refer the dictionary in front of the client. You should have the ability to guess the meaning of the word based on the context and continue with your reading. That is what we call efficiency. And they want the candidates to have this ability. And usually they give 5 marks. This again, if you read a lot, you will be able to answer. Out of 5, you can get easily 3. Should not be a problem. Now, what is the third important component? Vocabulary. As I said, English has about 8 lakh words, and all these words are divided into 2 groups, 5 lakh general words and 3 lakh technical words. Now, what is the syllabus when it comes to vocabulary? This is an ocean. You'll be surprised to know there are 8 lakh words, but a typical Englishman knows only 20,000 words. An intellectual knows about 40,000 words. And your question may be, how many words do we have to learn? From the exam point of view, you have to learn about 10,000 effective words. Then comes the question, there are 8 lakh words, which 10,000 words do we have to learn? What is the source? Very simple, the source is the Hindu newspaper editorials. When you read the editorials, maintain a separate notebook, try to make note of the words, and these words over a period of 6 months or 1 year, you get about 10,000 words. You don't have to go beyond. They use the same words in the exam, and it will be easy for you to answer the question. Should not be a problem. Generally, when it comes to vocabulary, how to enrich your word power, people talk about different approaches. But here I would like to talk about one of the approaches, what I call category approach. What is this category approach? There are about 5 or 7 or 8 categories. Each category you should learn 100 words, then you get about 800 words. But it is one of the approaches. I always feel, I recommend rather, try to learn words from a context. Never try to learn words in isolation. But here, exam point of view, you got to do certain things, and you have to learn this way. Take a list, try to learn, and definitely that will help you in the exam. But this should not be the sole approach. The best approach to learn words, always learn words from a context. So what are these categories? We have synonyms, antonyms, one word substitutes. If you want to say, express an idea, someone speaks a lot of languages, what do you say? He can speak a lot of languages. She knows a lot of languages. Instead of using a sentence, you can use a word, one word substitute, we call it. And what is a word for a person who can speak many languages? Polyglot. Poly means many, glot, there's a part here called glottis. So, polyglot, a person who can speak many languages. And this is very important exam point of view. Homophones. Homo means same, phone means sound. So, what does it mean? Words with the same sound but different spelling, different meaning. These are also very important from the exam point of view. And confusing words. Quite often they ask questions related to confusing words. And what is the next one? Misspelt words. This is very important. Misspelt words, IBPS and SBI prelims level, they give 5 questions. They are usually, they name misspelt or inappropriate words, and 5 marks, prelims level. Then when you try to learn, enrich your word power, always try to learn with the help of prefixes, suffixes, and roots. According to one study, if you learn about 50 prefixes, suffixes, and roots, you can easily unlock the meanings of 1 lakh words. A very useful approach. And these two come under, you could consider these two topics under grammar, the third part, or they go with vocabulary. I usually call these two topics, I place them, the group I call the group effective English. In the US and in the UK, a lot of people speak English, but there also some people get a lot of respect because others consider and say, oh, they speak very good English. Now, the question, how do they decide whether those people speak very good English or not? Why do they use the expression effective English? What comes under effective English? There are two topics which come under effective English. One is phrasal verbs, the other is idioms. Phrasal verbs, they're very difficult, very confusing. They take a lot of time because what is a phrasal verb? A phrasal verb is a combination of a verb and a preposition, or a verb and an adverbial particle. As a unit, it has a specific meaning, sometimes more than one meaning. The problem with phrasal verbs, the same verb, a different preposition, you get a new phrasal verb. The day you learn, you may remember, but after 1 week, you cannot remember. For example, you take the verb break, then you change the preposition, you have at least 5 or 6 phrasal verbs. Break in, break into, break up, break away, break down, break out. Today you may remember if I give the meanings, but after 1 week, rather difficult. So my suggestion, when you try to learn phrasal verbs, always try to create themes and try to learn with the help of the themes. For example, family related phrasal verbs, work related phrasal verbs. That way at least you will be able to remember. What is the next one? Idioms. Usually IBPS 2017 they started asking questions about phrasal verbs, but last 20 or 30 years SBI has been asking questions, 5 questions related to idioms. What is an idiomatic expression? An idiom is a group of words which make sense, and as a unit it has a specific meaning. But the words and the meaning usually they don't go with each other. So if the context is not there, it is very difficult to make out the meaning of a particular idiomatic expression. For example, imagine it rained last night. Simple English, what do we say? It rained last night heavily. It rained heavily last night. But effective English, it rained cats and dogs last night. It rained cats and dogs. Now, if you don't know the meaning, you wonder what are these cats and dogs? How are they related to rain? But the meaning of that expression, it rained heavily last night. Idioms are interesting, easy to learn. Now, how do I teach phrasal verbs and idioms? I teach with the help of one approach, themes, theme based, another verb based, and the third preposition based. These 3 approaches for phrasal verbs. For idioms, as I said, idioms are rather easy, should not be a problem. The theme based, idioms based on color, idioms based on animals, idioms based on body parts, idioms based on work. So if you learn that way, to master idioms, it doesn't take a lot of time. A week or 2 weeks, you can learn a lot of idioms and you'll be very happy to learn idioms. They're quite interesting, you can relate and easy to learn. But phrasal verbs you cannot master in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You have to spend about 3 months or 4 months, and you got to practice regularly, revise regularly. Only then you can remember. Now comes a million dollar question. Why should we enroll in this course? How does it help us? How is it different compared to other courses, online courses? Now I personally use 5 approaches in my teaching. I have been using for the last 2 decades, more than 2 decades. And what are these 5 unique approaches? I teach only in English. Usually at the national level also you come across a lot of English faculty members using the national language or the regional language, Hindi English or Telugu English or Tamil English, but not even a single word of the regional language or the national language will be used in my teaching. Whether I speak for half an hour or 2 hours or 10 hours, it will be completely in English, not even a single word in any other language. So you may wonder, so what is the use of teaching in English, or if someone teaches only in English? There's so many benefits. How do you get a language? How can you get proficiency in a language? There are two ways of getting proficiency. One is reading a lot, the other listening a lot. Reading a lot, keep it aside. What is the other one? Listening a lot. If I use only English, you get exposed to the words, the patterns, the combinations, and the nuances of using the language. But if I use a regional language or the national language, I don't think you will get that benefit, and you will not be exposed to the actual language, how it is used, how the sentences are constructed, how the ideas are expressed. This is a major benefit. Now, the second unique approach, I teach with the help of mind maps. You may ask, sir, what are these mind maps? Generally, the concept of mind maps, it has been given by a person called Tony Buzan. He is the one who conducts workshops on memory techniques, and he is known as father of memory techniques. In his workshops, he has created the concept of mind maps. He uses a lot of mind maps. While teaching English grammar, I have been using for more than 2 decades. I have been teaching with the help of mind maps, and you may wonder, why is it important? How is it important? If you learn with the help of mind maps, you can learn well, you can remember, you can recollect. Recollection is very important in the exam. If you take a lot of time to recollect or spot the error, every second is important, and that may put a lot of pressure on you. But if you learn with the help of mind maps, the moment you see the question, within no time you'll be able to answer the question, because already the information is stored in a systematic way, and you have learned with the help of mind maps, and that saves your time. In the exam, every second matters. On each question, you save a few seconds, and that helps you in the real sense. Now, what is the third one? Teaching is completely learner centric. I use very simple language, I use appropriate words, and I always teach from the learner point of view. What are their apprehensions? What are the problems? What are the limitations? How fast they can learn? How well they can learn? What are the usual standards? And I know that I deal with heterogeneous groups, but keeping all these factors in mind, I teach from the learner point of view, and that will be easy for the once I teach from the learner point of view, the learner will be able to relate and will be able to understand without any problem. The third one, syllabus, the fourth one, syllabus is exam centric. Whatever we teach, it is from the exam point of view. We don't teach what goes with academics. We don't teach what is not relevant to bank exams or competitive exams. Whatever we teach, every topic we teach is related to competitive exams, English for competitive. And what is the last one? I teach with the help of templates. I use a few design templates so that it becomes easy for you, for the learner. And once the information is presented with the help of creative design templates, it will not be a problem for the learner to learn the language.